Hey there guys, Spexy here, welcoming you back to yet another piping hot slice of video game history. And in today's episode, I want to talk about retro TV tie-in games. And not just any old TV tie-in games either, I might add. I want to focus my efforts on the games made around British TV in particular. So for those of you living outside of the UK, this video will not only give you an insight into the truly wonderful world of British computer games, but also the widely misunderstood, often tacky, yet delightfully charming world of British TV. And don't worry, I will be making a second video in this series to cover off the games made to tie in with the popular US retro TV shows, and let's face it, there have been plenty of those over the years, so look out for that one. But before we get started, you first need to understand that here in the UK, along with most of Europe, folks weren't so drastically hit by the video game crash of 1983. In fact, what video game crash? For us, we hardly even felt a tremor, and that's mainly because of these things. Yep, that's right, during that time many of us Brits had rather taken to the microcomputer, and not just for work purposes either, but also for entertainment. The home computer market was absolutely booming and remained unfaltered throughout the entire period. In fact, it didn't even skip a beat. And with the prices of our own homegrown tech being considerably more reasonable than many US alternatives, such as Commodore or Atari, home computing became far more accessible to the general public, who absolutely lapped it up. I was lucky enough to own a ZX Spectrum from its initial release back in 1982, and trust me, there was never any shortage of new games to be found for the system. With not only many commercial software houses being founded at that time, but also tech-savvy amateur coders, bloody kids no less, making their very own games in their very own bedrooms and putting them out for general release. So quite frankly, Nintendo did not, I repeat, did not single-handedly save the video game industry. In the interest of authenticity, I will be showcasing most of today's games on UK computers where possible, although versions of some of these games were also available on other systems if you so wish to hunt them down. So with so many UK coders and games companies, it was only a matter of time before UK TV would become the target for their games. I mean, if the TV shows themselves were popular, then it would stand to reason that the games based directly on them would be popular too, right? Well, prepare yourself for a truly shocking barrage of titles here, folks. Those of you with a sensitive nature towards total and utter tacky shite might want to reconsider watching any further at this point. Well, you have been warned, and that's just as well because quite frankly I'm not pulling any punches here with my first game on today's list. Benny Hill's Madcap Chase by DK-Tronics in 1985 may look quite childish in design, full of bright and colourful characters and backgrounds. However, the show on which the game is based couldn't be much further from that. I think by today's standards it would be hard to consider it even politically correct, much less family friendly for that matter. Benny Hill was a UK comedian with a career spanning from the 1950s on both TV and radio, all the way up to the 1980s, but was undoubtedly most famous for his very own show called The Benny Hill Show.
And then we're going to take a good look at this striking pair of Bristols. Bristol Cities. Bristol City Rover.
It could be argued, and quite often was, blatantly sexist, and largely got blamed for sexualising women for the sake of views. Which, to be fair, in those days wasn't only something Benny Hill was bashing out. Everyone was at it. Ooh. So what on earth made DK-Tronics think for a minute that any of this would make a good game? And moreover, why would it make a good game for kids, who, let's face it, were likely to be the target audience here? Well, quite frankly, I don't know what these guys were on at the time, but I really wish they hadn't bothered making this game at all, to be honest. Visually it looks kind of okay, I guess, using a graphic style developed by Don Priestley as previously used in the game Popeye, also by DK-Tronics, a style that was predominantly aimed at reducing the ZX Spectrum's infamous attribute or colour clash, and this worked for the most part. The only unfortunate side effect of such a technique meant that not much could be seen around the characters at any one time, making gameplay difficult at best. Madcap Chase sees you as Benny as he works around the several screens of the game, interacting with the other characters and trying to help them out, apparently. Though it looks more like he's stealing someone's underwear from their washing line, the dirty perv. This, of course, results in him being chased. This was an attempt to emulate the signature chase scenes which featured at the end of each Benny Hill Show episode, involving an ever-increasing snake of people, usually including the aforementioned scantily clad attractive ladies, and a bunch of angry men who chase Benny around to the tune Yakety Sax. Unfortunately, with the characters being so large here, there isn't really much of a sense of any kind of chase going on, or actually any signs of much fun to be had here either. Oh, I'm so glad that times have changed, and mostly for the better, I'd say. DK Tronics also had another bash at TV tie-in fame with another Thames television classic, Minder. And for those of you not familiar with Minder, it basically revolves around the ongoing misadventures of wheeler-dealer Arthur Daly, a man that would sell water to fish if he had half a chance, and his right-hand man and often bodyguard, ex-boxer Terry McGann. So quite a lot of scope for a decent game, you would imagine, and to be fair, you'd be right, as it wasn't exactly terrible. Combining the strategy of buying and selling a multitude of questionably dodgy goods from a multitude of questionably dodgy characters, most of which resided in some of the seediest pubs and pool rooms around London, all of this in an attempt to keep her indoors happy and make yourself a nice little earner. I fondly remember playing this game as a kid, and I actually think this one holds up reasonably well considering its age. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Now, as you can probably imagine, making a video game out of a game show or quiz would be the obvious choice, and in the 80s there wasn't exactly a shortage of them. And when it comes to making video games from game shows, one company instantly springs to mind, Maxen Software, and they made quite a few of them, to be fair. From Blockbusters and Blockbusters Gold Run in 1984, Blockbusters Question Master in 85, the classic darts-based quiz Bullseye, Countdown and Treasure Run in 1986. Each of them based on a classic British game show, and to a degree they all did a pretty decent job, to be fair. Whether you're trying to put together the longest word you can think of in a limited time frame, play a cracking set of darts for a chance of winning a hypothetical speedboat, seek out clues to find hidden treasure across the countryside, or ask Mr. Holness, "Can I have a pea please Bob?" they deliver pretty much as expected. But the company was still to release their masterpiece, their magnum opus if you like. For back in 1987, much like today, a certain London-based soap opera was pulling in viewers like a car crash on the M25. That soap, of course, was EastEnders, the show about everyday life in everyday Albert Square, oozing with love, hate, secrets, lies, affairs and murder. And that was just Dirty Den.
Happy Christmas, eh?
Making a game about all of this couldn't possibly go wrong. Well, not unless you decided to make it about doing your laundry, pottering in the garden, going to the supermarket, or drinking copious amounts of alcohol, that is. Actually, that alcohol is looking pretty bloody tempting at this point, if I'm ever going to get through this tribe. Yep, it really is that boring. There's no storyline to speak of, no action or excitement, no fun to be had at any single point, and it's all rather dull. Borderline depressing actually, and extremely painful to endure. Hey, wait a minute, that's a pretty bang-on description of EastEnders. Well done, Maxon, you nailed it! And I have to say I definitely admire their optimism in calling this game EastEnders Part 1, the arcade game. It's almost like they thought there was going to be a Part 2, presumably an adventure game, who knows? But perhaps far more importantly, who bloody well cares? Moving on now to something involving a rubbish bin that quite frankly would probably be far more at home in one. Un, dos, tres, responda otra vez is a Spanish game show which was far better known here in the UK by the title 321 and hosted by the fantabulous Ted Rogers. It also starred Dusty, an overly animated trash can with a huge personality. The show was pretty much a standard quiz affair, with contestants answering questions and working out clues to decide which prize to go for. Wrong guesses ended up with Dusty taunting the contestants as they got something totally useless, but guessing right often led to them winning some amazing things. The video game counterpart, made by Spanish software house Belton's Informatica and published in the UK by Cheetahsoft, pretty much followed suit on the show's format, asking general knowledge questions in a somewhat teletext style appearance. And looking at the box, it clearly states that there were some pretty amazing prizes to be won. Something which obviously confused players at the time, as later revisions had to be relabelled over the top of the box, explaining that the in-game prizes were exactly just that, and at no point would anybody actually be receiving a brand new washing machine through their letterbox. Aww. So can there really be much more of this utter drivel left? Oh, there's plenty of it to be fair, if you play your cards right, and with that in mind, take a look at this little lot. Now back in the UK in the 80s, there was one TV show which was a surefire hit among all the kids. Based in the classroom and the playground, it told familiar tales that kids could relate to. From messing around at the back of the class to bullying the nerdy kids for their dinner money, Grange Hill was and always will be a true slice of British culture, offering a reflection of school life that spoke directly to its viewer. So how could such a great concept be brought to the home computer? By giving the game license to Binary Designs, it seems. Their 1987 spectacular will remain forever lodged in players' memories, not for the fond reasons associated with the TV show, but for being infuriatingly frustrating at times. Playing as Luke Gonch Gardiner, one of the show's more memorable and actually pretty likeable characters, you must break back into the school after hours, along with your best friend Hollow, in an attempt to retrieve your expensive new Walkman, which has been confiscated during class. Using a combination of menus and text entry, you can get Gonch to perform certain tasks. It's pretty slow going, to be fair, but then most text-based adventure games were, to be honest. I did however like the graphical interpretations of the characters and some of the interesting puzzles and plot lines, including a rather creepy and shady pusher who attempts to get you to buy his drugs, resulting in what will be one of the most dark and shocking death scenes at that time. Not a terrible game by any means, particularly when compared to some of the other games I've mentioned so far. However, other school-based games have done such a better job of capturing the feeling. But all of that aside, would it be worth a play if someone offered you a copy? My advice? Do yourself a favour, and in the words of the Grange Hill kids themselves, just say no, just say no, no. Just say no, just say no. Unfortunately, we are drawing close to the end of today's video with only one more developer remaining. Now you've all heard the saying, leave the best till last. Well, that's definitely not going to be the case here, as I've taken a rather different approach and instead I've left arguably 3 of the worst Spectrum games that I've ever bore witness to. The developer? Tynesoft, a Newcastle-based software house responsible for such classics as Ian Botham's Test Match and Buffalo Bill's Wild West Rodeo Show. But we're not here to talk about those, oh no, they're absolute classics compared to what I have in store for you. So let's start with the first 2 games, both based on the same franchise, Supergram. Though with totally pathetic storylines and laughably crap characters, why anyone would ever consider making even one game based on this complete stack of pig shit is beyond me, let alone 2 of the fuckers. Supergram and Supergram the Adventure were both released by Tynesoft in 1985 and subject anybody unlucky enough to consider playing them with a horror of the worst degree. The first game, Supergram, is a crappy attempt at an arcade game, seeing you play as old Haggis chomping saggy tits herself as you fly around the screen using your propeller-driven flying bicycle. Yeah, you heard me correctly, don't question it. Avoiding and shooting at the enemies who also seem to be riding the exact same propeller-driven flying bike as you. Huh? It's tedious, it's annoying, and if you can stand the painful torture long enough to complete the first level, then you will be rewarded, and that's a rather loose term for it, with a second level where you have to avoid hot air balloons and jet aircraft using your gravity belt. I shit you not. Though it's really no better than the first level, to be honest, and I can't decide whether Supergram's remarkably increased in size here or the planes and balloons are just incredibly small. Oh come on, it's just bollocks either way. The second game, Supergram the Adventure, is not particularly any better, to be fair. At first I thought maybe I was being a little harsh to say that, as most text adventures of the era were also total turd, let's be honest, but then a text adventure based on a totally wank TV series is infinitely worse, trust me. So here it is, my choice for the single most disappointing game ever to grace the Specky. No, actually I wish to rephrase that. This game isn't just disappointing, it's downright hurtful. 1985's Auf Wiedersehen Pet, based on the series of the same name, is a pit of boredom and pain. The TV series was based on the events of a group of British workers trying to make a living working away from their wives and girlfriends back in the UK on a building site in Dusseldorf, hence the title being both partly in German and partly in English, Auf Wiedersehen meaning goodbye or see you later, and Pet being an affectionate slang term for partner if you happen to come from Newcastle. See what they did there? The show featured several different characters. There was Pyromaniac Scouser Plasterer Moxie, Brummy Electrician and Dimwit Barry, Londoner Wayne the Joiner, and a bunch of bricklayers, firstly ex-wrestler Bomber, and then the Geordie lads Dennis, Neville and Oz. The show itself, although fairly popular, wasn't exactly great, but it was a damn sight better than the game, and that's for sure. Taking part over 3 stages, you play solely as Oz. A little strange really, considering there were actually 7 characters they could have chose from, but hey ho. The first stage sees you attempting to build a house, or rather a bloody great big wall of some sort. It's pretty hard to tell as the whole thing is a bit of a mess really. The graphics, if you can call them that, are of the most basic kind, as you control, or rather attempt to control, a stickman Oz as he grabs bricks and cement and makes his way further up the screen, laying down bricks and avoiding the floating heads. Well, exactly like a real life building site then. One false move however and you will fall to your death. Though quite honestly, death would be a reward at this point. The second stage has Oz trying to get plastered, in the alcoholic sense anyway, and I don't sod him blame him, I'm considering it myself now quite frankly, as you work your way around a rather empty looking pub, drinking all the leftovers from the tables and avoiding the barmaid who will throw you out if she catches you. And the third and final stage is all about getting home in the dark whilst drunk, as parts of the screen turn black and you have to remember exactly where the cars were placed to avoid hitting them on your merry way. And that's about it really. It's not exactly going to win any awards for gameplay, graphics or sound, as they're all completely toss. I actually don't care what kind of deadline Bob Carr was working to whilst making this game. There's absolutely no excuses to be made for such a terrible piece of programming, and he should be ashamed of himself. Now I'm not sure if Bob ever went on to make anything else, as Google searches provide nothing other than this game, but if he ever did then I'd really like to know about it. If anything, just to see if his work ever improved. I really fucking hope so. To simply call this game dull is such an understatement that even suggesting it should result in prosecution for fraud. Just take a glance at the loading screen here. That look on Oz's face pretty much sums up this game perfectly. A weird man? Yet even given all of this, I still have very fond memories attached to this game, because my very first experience with this game was borrowing it from a friend of a friend at school, Jason. And whilst waiting the several hopeful minutes for the game to load, I had such high expectations for it. Obviously, all of those were completely dashed after playing it, and considering how terrible the game actually is, it's a sodding wonder that I ever decided to speak to Jay again. Yet somehow, even after the biggest betrayal ever known to man in lending me this steaming pile of horse crap, not only did I decide to talk to him, but we went on to become best friends, and he was actually best man at my wedding. Oh, it's such a bloody good job that I'm forgiving. Thanks Jay mate, great game. So there you have it, not only a bunch of UK TV related computer games, but also including arguably some of the worst examples of computer games ever to be released on any system. Now that's quite an achievement. Don't forget to keep an eye out for the next instalment of TV tie-ins, where I'll be taking a look at the action-packed lineup that American TV spawned. Will they fare any better? Well, you'll have to wait and see. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did then why not spank the hell out of that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for more retro goodness. I've been Spexy, you've been sensational, and I look forward to looking backwards with you again in the next episode. See you soon, bye for now.